Okay, well, good morning first of all. Thanks for giving me 10 minutes of your time just to explain what Central Asia Metals Plc does in Kazakhstan. First of all, we own two assets effectively. The first one, which is 100% owned, in production and cash flowing, is our Kounrad project, which is an in-situ heap leach project which produces between 12,500 and 13,500 tonnes of pure cathode copper. It's a project we developed back in 2010, and I'll talk more about that project later. On the back of the success in Kazakhstan, we then acquired in November 2017 a project in North Macedonia, the Republic of North Macedonia as it's now called, which as you can see there is in the Balkan regions. We paid $402.5 million for this asset at that time, and that's a more traditional mine. It's an underground lead and zinc mine. Produces in the range of 22 to 24,000 tonnes of zinc in concentrate and 28 to 30,000 tonnes of lead in concentrate annually. That's our guidance for this year. So that's where we operate and that's who we are. Just moving along, a quick snapshot of our results for this year. Our full year ends 31st of December. And 9 months into the year, you can see the production numbers there, and all they basically show is that we're well on track to reach those guidance numbers. Just to remind you, 12,500 to 13,500 tonnes of copper from Kazakhstan and from Kounrad, and then 22, 24,000 tonnes of zinc, 28 to 30,000 tonnes of lead. And we think we're aiming towards the top end of those ranges. But you can see there on the right the financial numbers. So for the half year results to the end of June, we generated gross revenue, should I say, of just shy of $90 million, and out of that generated what's known as an EBITDA, so earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortisation, equates almost to your cash flows of $56.7 million. That's a margin of 63% on the back of those two cash flowing projects that I mentioned before. And that enables us to pay a strong dividend. We've been paying dividends now since 2012. This half year we announced a 6.5p interim dividend, which is the third time on the row that we've announced that at that level as an interim dividend. It equates to about a 6% yield. Just a couple of other financial information. We do own debt now. We have net debt at the half year of just over $100 million. That's about $30 million cash and $126 million of gross debt. And as I say, we are a dividend-paying company. A little bit on the history of the company, and for this particular forum, I think a lot of this is testament to the stability of operating in a country like Kazakhstan. Stable tax regime, stable political regime, and that has enabled us as a business to manage successfully, build the project on time, bring it in under budget, despite managing sometimes the bureaucracy around Kazakhstan, which can be frustrating, but you can get things done in that country, and I think we're a testament to that, and that's probably why I'm stood here talking about Central Asia Metals in a Kazakh forum. But the history of the company goes back all the way to 2005. We incorporated, I think it was around December 2005. So we're not a Johnny-come-lately. We've been here about 14 years. We did list on the stock exchange on the AIM market in 2010. We raised $60 million at the time at a price of 96p. And those funds were primarily invested into Kazakhstan to develop the Kounrad project. We then used the cash flow from that project, because it was highly cash generative from the first day, to plough back into developing that project to the point where today it's fairly stable, and we've now invested around about $75 million into the project. We then looked around for other copper projects. We landed on a lead and zinc project in North Macedonia, but the primary reason for that was because the business characteristics of Sasa, which I'll talk about later, very similar to the Kounrad project. Low cost, in the lowest half of the cost curve, very consistent performer, and when you're in that part of the cost curve, despite the cycle of commodities which you're all aware of, you can generate profits in good times as well as bad times. Today, as I stand here, we're a market cap just under $500 million. We've paid back $176 million in dividends to our shareholders. That's 98p per share since we listed. And we've got an enterprise value of just shy of about $600 million. Shareholder value, clearly that's been a key focus of myself and Nick, the chairman who's in the crowd today, since day one effectively. Since we started producing copper in Kazakhstan, we've been working towards paying money back to the shareholders to reward them for their support effectively. And any of those metrics you look at on that chart there, you can see that we've got strong margins, pay good dividends, and we're a good cash flowing company. So that's shareholders. But we recognise as a management team there's a lot of other stakeholders in businesses these days. Shareholders are a key part of the business, but so are a lot of other stakeholders. And from 2013, we've had a CSR director involved in the business to look after what we traditionally call corporate social responsibility. Now, clearly the world has moved on from that, and the buzzword now is sustainability. But we've also been pretty strong and well focused on other aspects of sustainability, the governance side, looking after our people, making sure that they're well looked after and that we have a low staff turnover. So I think we do a good job on all of those things. Quite a bit of information up on that chart there, but sustainability is something we're very strongly focused on. I was delighted on Monday morning that we could announce the appointment of Dr. Gillian Davidson to our board. She'll strengthen our board. Gillian has a very strong background in sustainability. She's worked at Tech Resources. She was the Director of Social Responsibility. She was the head of Mining and Metals at the World Economic Forum, and she was also the chairman for International Women in Mining. So a very strong background, and I think she'll be a good addition to our team. And the other thing on sustainability that we're doing at the moment is we'll be producing a sustainability report next year, purely focused on those aspects of the business that we find important moving forward. I'll quickly jump past the Sasa and I'll come back to Sasa because this is a Kazakh forum. I just want to emphasise what we've done in Kazakhstan. It's not a traditional mine. This is in situ. We don't move the waste rock anywhere at all. It's leached in situ, and that's why it's low cost. And out of that facility, we leach the ore. There's 625 million tonnes of ore close to that open pit that you can see there on the diagram there. And we've been operating in the east primarily. 2.5 years ago, we transitioned out to the west, and we're now producing probably 70% of our copper comes from leaching on the western dumps. And we have about 165,000 tonnes of recoverable copper still to go for. And I think something that's quite important in terms of what the previous speaker mentioned from Charak Gold, we're conscious about employing local people. We only have one expatriate working there, one CSR director, as I said, from 2013. Other than that, it's local staff that we employ, that we've taken on, that we've trained, and that we've developed. And I think we've got a good skill set where we work, but we've also put a lot of money, or a lot of time and effort, should I say, back into the local community to train the local staff. You can see there that it's quite seasonable. Temperatures range from anywhere between minus 35 in the winter, and believe me, that's cold, to plus 35 in the summer. But we do produce throughout the year, but you can see it is slightly seasonal, to the point now where we've got a stable output, as I said before, 12.5 to 13,500 tonnes of cathode copper. Low cost, I mentioned before, that's important to us. We reckon we're one of the lowest copper, in terms of cost, producers in the world. Yes, small scale, 12.5 to 13,500 tonnes, but certainly in the lowest decile of the world's copper producers. We produce copper at as you can see there, price of 51 cents per pound. That's at a C1 cash cost level, and therefore we make strong margins from it and put that back into the business, and also acquiring other businesses, as I said before. So just quickly, on the strength of that success, as I said, in November 2017, we paid $402.5 million for the Sasa underground lead and zinc mine. That's performing very much in line with what we anticipated. It has generated just north of $117 million of EBITDA to the end of June this year. And the production's been consistent. We're looking at improving it where we can, putting money into investing in the people and the assets and the resources to optimise the output from that mine. But it's very much a stable performer, and we'll be managing that business for another 20 years. It's got a life of mine through to 2038. One of the things we committed to at the time of the acquisition was to take on new staff to bolster the team. It was a transaction that almost doubled the size, in fact more than doubled the size of the company at the time, and therefore we did honour those commitments and took on a Chief Operating Officer, Scott. He's built a team around him. And the other thing we're quite proud of in this particular forum is that we now have Kazakhstan expats in North Macedonia. We've taken part of our management team from Kunrad over to Sasa, and they now manage part of that project. We've got a General Director, a Chief Engineer, and one of our Chief Economists. They've all come over from Kazakhstan and work in North Macedonia. So it's testament to developing those people and moving them around the slightly larger group that we now have, where we employ just over 1,000 people. Again, low cost, I won't labour the point, strong margins, and it is a low cost operation that we intend to continue throughout the ownership. Last but by no means least, clearly as a business that owns finite assets, we're looking to grow the business. Our focus very much at the moment is to maintain the dividends back to our shareholders. Just to reiterate, we paid 6.5 pence at the interim. We have a dividend policy that's based on cash flows. So we pay back 30 to 50% of our cash flows from Sasa and from Kounrad to our shareholders annually. And we have a yield of around about 6 to 7%. So that's a priority of ours. Deleveraging, we've now got just north of $100 million of net debt. Paying that down over the next 2.5 years is a priority. But at all the time throughout that, we're looking at opportunities to grow the business. And Kazakhstan is a key focus of ours. There's a lot of opportunities in Kazakhstan. We've shown we can operate there. We've shown we can be successful. We have got good contacts in the country. And so we'll be trying to leverage those contacts to try and expand the business in that region. And I think on that point, I'll just summarise Central Asia Metals for you. As I say, 2 low-cost, long-life operations, generating good cash. Now a diversified business, paying strong dividends, 6.5 pence of the half year. And we're on track for our guidance of copper, 12.5 to 13,500 tonnes, zinc, 22 to 24,000 tonnes, and lead, 28 to 30,000 tonnes. And on that, I'll finish. I may have slightly overrun, I don't know, but I'll hand back over to Mike.
Slightly. Thanks, Nigel. That's great.